Have you ever wondered how an ordinary drive home can turn into a carefully planned execution? Not in a war zone, not in a dangerous city, but in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Florida. This is the true story of Jared Bridegan. A case that began with a father driving home and ended with a murder investigation that would span years, multiple arrests, and allegations of a murder-for-hire plot. On the night of February 16, 2022, Jared Bridegan was driving through Jacksonville Beach, Florida. He was 33 years old, a father of 4, a man described by those close to him as hardworking, calm, and deeply devoted to his children. That evening, he had just completed one of his regular custody exchanges. 2 of his children had been with him. He had just dropped them off, and now he was heading home. In the back seat of his vehicle sat his 2-year-old daughter. The drive should have been routine, short, familiar, safe, but something was waiting on that road. As Jared continued through a quiet stretch of suburban street, he encountered an object in the roadway, a tire. At first glance, it looked like simple debris, something that had fallen off a truck, something that needed to be moved. Like most people would, Jared stopped. He got out of his vehicle and walked toward the tire. It was the last time he would ever be seen alive. According to investigators, as Jared approached the object, a gunman stepped out from the darkness. Multiple shots were fired. Jared was struck and collapsed near his vehicle. Inside the car, his young daughter remained strapped safely in her car seat. The attacker fled the scene immediately, and within moments, a quiet residential road had become a crime scene. When police arrived, they were met with a disturbing situation. A father had been killed. A child had been present during the attack, and there was no obvious explanation. No robbery, no random violence, no clear suspect. Just a chilling question. Why Jared Bridegan? Investigators immediately began working the case. They reviewed everything: his background, his finances, his work life, his relationships, his recent movements. At first, there was no clear motive, no obvious enemy. No sign that Jared had been targeted by strangers. But one detail stood out almost immediately: the tire. It didn't feel random. It felt placed, deliberate, as if someone had arranged the scene in advance to make sure Jared would stop and step out of his vehicle. That detail shifted the entire direction of the investigation. Because if the tire was intentional, then the attack was not spontaneous. It was planned. And if it was planned, someone had known exactly where Jared would be that night. As detectives dug deeper, they began focusing on Jared's personal life. Like many divorced parents, Jared had been involved in custody and co-parenting arrangements. Over time, there had been legal disputes and disagreements connected to those arrangements. Investigators examined court records, communications, and relationships tied to the case. According to prosecutors, these conflicts would later become central to the alleged motive. They believed this was not a random act of violence, not a robbery, not a chance encounter, but something far more calculated: a murder-for-hire plot. As months passed, the investigation slowly began to take shape. What initially looked like a mystery started revealing connections. Then, in early 2023, investigators made a major breakthrough. A man named Henry Tenon was arrested. According to prosecutors, he was identified as the gunman, and in a major development, Tenon initially entered a guilty plea. He also agreed to cooperate with investigators. For a time, it appeared that part of the mystery was finally being answered. But the case was far from over, because later, Tenon changed his position. He sought to withdraw his guilty plea. A judge allowed it, and he later pleaded not guilty, requesting a trial. That single decision reshaped the case once again, because now the alleged shooter was no longer cooperating in the same way, and the full truth became more contested. Meanwhile, investigators continued building their case against others allegedly involved. Authorities arrested Mario Fernandez Saldana, accusing him of playing a coordinating role in the plot. Later, Shanna Gardner was also arrested, drawing national attention due to her past relationship with Jared. With each new arrest, the case expanded. What had once appeared to be a single act of violence was now being described by prosecutors as a coordinated conspiracy involving multiple people. As the legal process moved forward, prosecutors laid out their theory. They alleged that the tire was placed intentionally to force Jared to stop his vehicle, that the timing was carefully planned, and that the attack was part of a coordinated effort involving more than one person. Defense attorneys, as expected, challenged those claims, and like all criminal cases, the final outcome would depend on what is proven in court. But regardless of how the legal arguments unfold, one fact remains undisputed. A father was killed on a quiet Florida road. His young daughter survived the attack, and an entire family was permanently changed in a matter of seconds. The case of Jared Bridegan continues to draw attention because it feels both modern and unsettling. It is not a decades-old mystery. It is not a case lost to history. It is recent, still unfolding, still being argued in courtrooms, still revealing new developments. And at the center of it all is a simple image that remains difficult to forget. A quiet road, a tire in the darkness, a father stepping out of his car, believing he was helping clear the road, not knowing it was a trap. And the question that remains is the one that started it all. How does something like this happen? In an ordinary place, on an ordinary night, to an ordinary family? And how many details of this case are still waiting to be fully understood?